person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are firmly embedded in AIPAC, and
Every member has something like this?
that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them.
That's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
It's pretty impressive, actually.
Scary skeletons.
That's impressive. The whole system is impressive,
It's almost seamless. Perfect.
and it's more detailed and nuanced than any science fiction I've read or any Tom Clancy novel I've read. It's impressive.
Boring.
Boring.
That's boring.
Yeah.
It has no lasers.
I
want the computer
it does have
fucking
lasers.
It has
I
lasers?
think Hawaiians would agree with you.
Ah, you're right. What am I talking
Yeah.
about?
It's got
What did the Hawaiians do to the
Brazilian.
It's got lasers. It's got heart attack guns. It's got
ice gun?
It's got head microwaving Havana syndrome.
Do you guys ever say something?
It's got weather control.
You ever say something really ridiculous?
It's like the highest. It's like the most complex sci-fi I've ever read. It's like
Yeah, you're right.
it's as complex as like Babylon 5 fan fiction. Like that level of depth, or more.
I'm gonna ask my APEC person about
We
that.
got to talk to our APEC guy. You remember? I'm sorry to cut you off, Chris. Remember what you were going to say, but you remember when we got canceled. Ovlov donated 5,000 to
My APEC person.
What's the other one? The ADL.
What?
They were. You remember they tried to cancel all the musicians that worked with us, and John Mouse was the only one who didn't call us Nazis.
I do remember that.
Ovlov, in order to keep having a career, they sent $5,000 to the ADL.
Why the ADL?
Just
Brazilian.
Is Ovlov
Brazilian?
No, because they were going to be to not be called Nazis. That's the price to not be called Nazis. Can you type in Ovlov ADL?
I'm gonna send 5,000 to the ADL now too.
And then I think they broke up or something. Maybe they're back together. Who knows?
I saw them.
You saw them playing?
No, I saw them at
Oh, they came to a show?
I went to go see them at Narrowhead.
Oh.
I ran into them at Narrowhead.
Interesting.
Concert. The
So-
two Nice brothers.
Yeah.
And then Steve, I said I was mad at them.
Ovlov, maybe donation.
Who'd you hear that from?
I just remember it from the time.
Yeah.
It might not even be a published thing.
Good Lord.
But that definitely is something that happened. And I don't know if it was the ADL. I think it was the ADL. It was some
Brazilian
type league.
You ever go on the ADL? You look at the symbol.
It's getting clean. Let's go to Nick's links.
All right.
Nick's
I feel
links,
excited.
baby. Leading off strong here. Attacks on Mel Gibson. We didn't look at this yet, right?
I don't know. I just sent this because I wanted this. I wanted you to decipher.
Joey, this is new?
This is new, yeah.
Okay. Attacks on Mel Gibson for the Rothschild movie. Mel Gibson has decided to hit the global New World Order agenda by directing a movie about the Rothschild family. What is that real? What the movie is about of a family of bankers. The bankers have indebted the entire world through organizations like the Bank of International Settlements and the World Bank, and through global organizations such as the United Nations, CFR, Bilderberg Group. With every single mention of the Rothschild family, the media around the world has already declared war on the director and wants to stop not only the production of the film, but punish Gibson himself. Can we look up, is Mel Gibson actually doing this?
So Mel Gibson is always pissing off these
Brazilian.
He is just
He
funny.
can't
He's a
he can't
funny
help
son
himself.
He is one funny son of a.
Can't help it.
Oh,
He
no.
can't help it, Nick.
Oh.
He's got to talk about the
Brazilian.
I don't want you to tell him to off. Co-star Shia LaBeouf. Good for you.
Wow. Man,
Wow, look at
I
that.
hope Shia's cool, dude. Man, that would be crazy if Shia's doing this.
Look at s-
Seth Rogen is such a
Silly Billy.
ho holocaust denier. What a loser. Man, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go see that.
I'm gonna be in the theater watching that. Well, the Rothschild family supposedly, has a lot to do with the demise of the world.
No, they don't.
No,
Nick, that's conspiracy.
no, they're probably playing polo.
That's anti-Semitism at its worst.
Rothschild sounds British,
It's British. They're British, fine British family.
but why is it anti-Semitic if I say it's something against the British?
Just don't fair play, chap.
Tap my leg.
Chap.
Now then, here we go. Chippa chippa.
Here, chieftain.
Here. Prince Andrew. He's choking on a 1-year-old. He's eating a 1-year-old's arm.
We met. Did you meet Shia?
I never met Shia.
I met Shia.
Yeah,
He's
you met Shia
he seemed cool.
Yeah, you said he seemed cool.
He seemed cool, and then his handler. He had this like
Silly Billy.
artist dude
Mhm.
who came out. I was talking to Shia. We were chopping it up. It was cool.
Mhm.
He seemed like a genuinely cool dude, and then this fucking
Silly Billy.
came out and was like, Shia, do you not know what this man is? British, like exactly like this. Do you not
know what this man represents?
Yes, exactly. He was like, and then it was crazy. It was like watching something you'd expect from like Drew Barrymore or something. Where
Oh,
a guy
no.
comes out and like leads them away by the hand.
Oh no.
This guy was like, Shia, you don't understand what this man is doing right now. He's using humor to try to spread bigotry. And then he said this quote from like Maya Angelou or something that lynching is never a somber affair, which I guess is something that he said, Shia, do you remember that beautiful poem? He sounded I'm not exaggerating. Do you remember that beautiful poem, Shia, from Maya Angelou? A lynching is never a somber affair. A lynching is never a somber affair, which means like at a lynching, it would be like a party supposedly, and they'd be laughing. So it's like just because he's a humorous, funny guy doesn't mean he's not doing some evil thing. But that's how he got him to walk away. And then I gave Shia my phone number, and I was like, he was gonna give me his phone number, and I was like, dude, I'm never gonna put you on blast. I'm never gonna screenshot your conversations. I don't do that. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be some
Silly Billy.
problem for you.
Yeah.
And he's like, cool, man, cool. And then the guy came in, and like right before he gave me his phone number, he was like, he shut it down.
I wonder how much the Prince of Andrew pays that
Silly Billy.
to watch out for Shia LaBeouf.
Man, crazy.
I
Okay.
want an agent. I want a 1-to-1 agent. That sounds like exciting.
a handler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how fucking important do you get where they're like this? We need to watch out for them.
yeah.
Like Shia LaBeouf, so I mean, that's pretty much threshold stuff. But
Mhm.
like, they must have been. He was in.
But look, the thing is, like, one of the things I love, I've probably talked about this before, is like,
I'm sweating right now.
Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink, and like not necessarily Joe Rogan, but Jocko Willink, like he's like a guru that's like gonna tell you how to get your shit together.
Yeah.
And he's like, you want to be alpha, you have to look him in the eyes, like that type of shit. That's the type of advice he gives.
Cool, thanks.
And it's so his life is like waking. He wakes up at 4:45 a.m. That's his like claim to fame, which
Yeah.
is that's easy to do when you go to bed at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay, that's easy to do when all you have to do is a fucking book tour.
Come sell cars with me, you fucking
Silly Billy.
bull. I'll bulwark you.
Exactly. I'll bowl you
Come
over.
sell Mercedes with me, Jocko Willink. I swear to God, I'll smoke your ass. I'll make you fucking smoke crack when you're done with me.
Yes.
You ever go on the ADL? You look at the symbol tab, scroll through it.
No.
Some are
Oh, they're hate symbols.
there's a lot of them, and some of them don't make any sense.
Let's check it out.
This exclamation point.
Yeah, I remember when this was racist.
You're shouting.
The OK sign was racist.
Mm-hmm.
So we're do resources, hate symbols database.
Yeah, we need the resources here.
100%.
100%. Let's keep it 100%. 109, guys. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 109.
I
12,
recognize that one.
13, 14.
I'm never
It's just
using these.
every number.
Wow. More like 311 crew.
I'm
23.
311. Oh, 311's racist.
This is my lucky number.
Yep.
You got 38.
It's the you're a hammer skin.
These are all numbers. They're just like, let's get it out of the way. First, all these numbers are
Rule
like
43.
they're prime numbers.
Yep.
Boots and laces.
If you wear laced boots, you're a Nazi. We got the bowl cut in there.
Is bowl cut?
Boots, you're a Nazi. We got the bowl cut in there.
Is bowl cut in there?
Yep.
Whoa.
Hell
Dylan
yeah.
Roof bowl cut. Oh, it's just a bowl cut. It's his. It's just his hair.
That's insane.
It's your hair from the bowl cut video.
I
Sam.
know.
It's not Dylan
Damn,
Roos.
that's
They got CJL, Christopher John
wait,
Lynch.
where?
No. It said CWB or something. BWC Chris.
It's awesome.
Yeah, universe.
I think this is also called cool fashion brand logo hunting.
Cool
database.
shit.
Yeah.
Coolshit.com.
Hate.
Hate.
Can't use that.
Yeah, I know all those.
Hate Edge.
No, hate.
Hitler
Home
salute.
Shopping Network, HSN is one.
Mhm.
Yep.
What's the hammer skins again? Obviously.
What's Hammerskins?
Hammerskin Nation? They put dog medicine on their hands.
That's what I thought it was
We
gonna
got
be. Yeah.
Overwatch.
Oh, that's Wakanda.
We got
Who knew?
Iron Cross.
Citizens Bank.
It's okay to be white. You can't say it's okay to be white. That's
Yep, we got In the Sacred
awesome.
Unfailing Being. It's okay to be white. That's crazy.
really funny.
Sponsored by that game everyone loves. Scientists are racing to unlock the secrets of the cosmos.
A few years ago, Tia Billinger was going to a 9-to-5 and settling into a married suburban life. Today, she's better known as Bonnie Blue, famous for sleeping with over 1,000 men in one day. Her career's been boosted by countless news articles, podcasts, and TV interviews. Until recently, she was pulling in hundreds of thousands every month, millions every year, becoming one of the most famous women on the internet. And her rise is just everything wrong with the internet and modern fame culture, as her transformation and her wild success tells us all we need to know about modern society. So let's dive right into her sordid story and discover why Bonnie Blue is a warning to all of us. You see, before Bonnie was bonking illegal teens, she was young and innocent herself. Growing up in the sleepy English town of Stapleford, Nottinghamshire, her childhood was incredibly average. With a relatively wealthy upbringing and a stable home life, there was no indications of what was to come. In fact, Bonnie was actually engaged and married far earlier than most. She met her now ex-husband at just 15 years old. He was a rugby star at a nearby private school, and together they were said to have a picturesque, normal life. The pair soon moved into their own house, nearly entirely funded by her partner's wealthy parents. She had everything on a great silver platter. But for whatever reason though, something deep down was wrong. Bonnie wasn't happy with what this stable future looked like. It was just too boring. This wasn't what she wanted. And after spending their teenage years together, the pair split when Bonnie was just 21 years old, and quickly did what every other Brit does, moved to Australia and pursued a career, where she would eventually land in recruitment, just like many 21-year-old British girls. And so far, this sounds like just pretty much anyone else's story. But it was at this point where things took a weird turn. Even with her newfound freedom, Bonnie was just always bored.
And all I thought is, oh, I finished school, I've gone into apprentice and recruitment, and now I'm going to do recruitment for the rest of my life. And I was like, is this as good as it going to
Well, no,
get?
because there's like a million other jobs.
Yeah, but still like for me, it was very office-based, and money is shit.
She could continue commuting to work, sitting in an office and living a dull but stable life with a happy family. Or there was the other option. She could become famous. She could make it big online and finally be recognized.
So basically, I used to work in recruitment. I was bored of living the 9 to 5, just doing the average life. And I was like, I'm going to give this a go. Started off doing camming for about 2 weeks.
And what was the easiest, most profitable way of doing this? Well, by using her sexuality. And with just one taste of camming, Bonnie was already hooked. At first, it was just a side hustle, something to help put food on the table and help save up for a house. However, it soon proved far more lucrative than she ever expected.
I was earning a lot of money on camming, like 4,000 to 5,000 AUD a week. And that was like instantly life-changing.
It was fast, easy money. Bonnie earned 5,000 Australian dollars after just 1 week as a cam girl. A few weeks later, she was earning more in one stream than her job would pay out for days or weeks of work. She soon realized that just with her looks and playing with men's sexual needs, she could easily become a multi-millionaire and live out her fantasies, her dreams and goals in life, and never have to settle down or rely on a man again. But she soon realized that just camming like this wasn't going to be enough. Other platforms were far better for reaching a wider audience. She saw how these huge OnlyFans stars were making $5 million a month, becoming part of the 0.001% in society just from playing on men's psychology. And the best thing was, these OnlyFans girls didn't have to stream every day either. It was the ultimate business model. With just a few hours of work a week, you could make millions if you did it right, all whilst becoming famous at the same time. And if you're wondering how the top 1% of OnlyFans creators make so much money, take a look at this. A recent study found that over 80% of men watch porn on a regular basis, with a lot of them spending hundreds if not thousands on subscriptions to fuel their addiction every month. Quitter is on a mission to stop this and help men regain control of their lives and finally break free from this evil habit. With their in-app 30-day challenge, 1 million men have already seen incredible changes in their lives. Increased discipline, boosted focus and productivity, confidence in themselves, and in talking to women. Quitting porn doesn't have to be difficult, and with Quitter's cutting-edge app, 30 days is all it takes to enjoy the physical and mental benefits. Now you might be thinking, but how do I know if I need help? Well, with Quitter's free porn addiction quiz, you can see how your habits compare to the 1 million men they have already helped overcome their addiction. All you have to do is click the link in the description and download the app and begin the quiz. Today is the day you stop saying I'll quit tomorrow and regain control before it's too late. Now of course, Bonnie was already making far more money than most adult content creators can hope for. In reality, the top 1% of OnlyFans creators earn just around £38,000 annually, which is about as much as the average UK salary. The vast majority earn far less, pumping out content every day to a tiny amount of paying subscribers. There are hundreds of thousands of them, all trying to outcompete each other. So to stand out, you need to do something truly exceptional, be incredibly beautiful and stunning, or truly depraved. It's the same process we're seeing at almost every level of society, where everything has to be more extreme, more crazy, more fattening, more dopaminergic than anything else. Whether for good or bad, you have to be extreme. And if you're not, people get bored of you and you'll make nothing. We see it even with factory workers who lose their jobs now because they're competing against extremely cheap labor from foreign countries. Dating has become so much harder for them because instead of competing with local people in your own city, you're now competing with the entire world, with the top elite of people using Photoshop and everything they can to their advantage. There are plenty of examples wherever you look, and OnlyFans is yet another one. It's becoming far more common as well. Both regular people and celebrities are now all integrating this into their wider social media. We see people like Lil Nas trying to take down Christianity with his music, all to get those outrage clicks. The more normalized all of this becomes, the more people give it a try, and OnlyFans is just a symptom of this entire process. But whilst it's such a tempting offer, with a few hours of work and a quick sign up in minutes, the consequences can be permanent. Whilst it might be fine for a couple of years, future employers, partners, children, or anyone else important in your life will probably judge you heavily for this. And in previous societies, it would have been completely shameful. But when you see these people making millions a month just from doing it, it's all too tempting not to. And once you start, you just can't stop. So in the first few weeks of her career in adult content, Bonnie coasted along with her genetics. When she was younger, she looked like a beautiful woman. She could have easily stayed at this level for years, earning a healthy amount of money. But the same thing that drove her away from a quiet, boring life in England or a normal job in Australia pushed her further. Her rise through the world of OnlyFans would be thanks to other qualities, character traits that made her perfectly suited to the world of online adult content. The first thing that Bonnie needed to do was find her niche. Most creators don't push the envelope. They post the same kind of pictures with the same kind of captions, all competing for the exact same audience. Targeting a specific niche makes it much more likely for your fans to pay out. Some people choose specific preferences to focus on, but Bonnie was going to do something that would have mass appeal, while also being far more extreme than others would dare to do. She was going to use regular people in her videos.
My inbox was flooded with these schoolies saying, hey, like I really want to sleep with you and make a video.
It was a pretty simple idea, but there's a lot of very good reasons content creators don't do this. Before Bonnie Blue, nearly all adult content creators only worked with other content creators. Everything was simulated and acted out, as it's safe for them because random people off the street have no incentive to be professional and could be kind of dodgy, let alone unhygienic. It's also a lot less likely for fellow performers to take advantage or act out if their career and their reputation is involved. The closed system gives them more control. There's just a million reasons not to use random people instead of other performers, but Bonnie didn't care about any of this. She knew that this was her shot at fame online, as she explained on UK TV.
Because as I started my content, I realized it was not necessarily relatable to the average person. And I wanted to make my content relatable. I'm just a girl, I'm relatable, I'm sort of the girl next door vibes.
She saw the opportunity to make money by actually giving people something closer to the real thing, to give people a false hope. She knew her audience was desperate, lonely men. So if she made a parasocial relationship with them, acting as if the guy watching could be next, she would rake in millions. Plus, she had the rare quality of seemingly not caring about how unsafe and dirty this could actually be. In podcasts, she's openly talked about how people have taken advantage and even stolen her phone in all of the chaos. And it's fairly likely that she's omitting lots of the gory, horrible details, or that she's so used to at this point that it doesn't even faze her anymore.
Worse, I would say just someone having take my phone, and I wasn't bothered about the phone. It was more, I've just pleasured you.
Yeah.
And you've done that. Like, it's just frustrating that there's such like nasty people out there.
Even with how extreme and degenerate this was, it still wasn't enough yet. She was still bored. She knew she could become more famous and get more attention and money. So she wasn't going to just use one random person, she was going to get hundreds of people involved. And on top of that, she was also going to target a very specific demographic. From the beginning of her stunts, Bonnie targeted the youngest men she could legally target. In Australia, where she was living at the time, 18-year-olds have a week of partying late in the year after they finish the exams. It's called schoolies, and for lots of teens, it's the first holiday they'll have as an adult. You can already see why so many people are calling this predatory. In interviews with critics, Bonnie tells the world that it's completely legal, that she has people sign consent forms, checks their IDs, and makes sure they all get tested before anything happens.
When they're coming to me, it's pre-planned. So they've already thought about it beforehand. They have to fill in 2 consent forms, they have to bring ID, and they also get tested. So it's a much safer environment than what people think.
Meanwhile though, her promotional material often uses the term barely legal. It speaks to how she's pushing the law to its limits rather than actually paying attention to ethics or common sense. Because why would you when money and fame are the only things you care about? But we're in a society and culture that values extremes and immorality over actual virtue.
I call them barely legal teens because I'm aware it's going to get attention. And the more attention I get, the more word it spreads. And the more people that know about it, the more 18-year-olds I can with.
Bonnie sold her soul doing this, and in 2023, along with a bunch of other stunts, actually found herself at the top of OnlyFans. Within no time at all, she was now earning hundreds of thousands every single month, making the bleak truth about society ever more clear. The more extreme your content is, and the more degenerate you are, the more attention and money you'll get. This creates an especially destructive trap for people to fall into. They might start out in the industry with lots of strict boundaries and things they won't do. But if it turns into their career, and they have an alter ego, then there's suddenly a financial incentive for them to do things they aren't comfortable with. If they start losing their audience, content creators will feel forced to take the next step towards more extreme content. Bonnie Blue, who dives straight in head first, is rare in this way. But at this point, you might be wondering about Bonnie's family. The family she left behind in England. All the people from her past that knew her. Her ex-husband, her friends, and most of all her parents must have had some thoughts about her virality. You might think they'd be displeased seeing their daughter earning their living by sleeping with so many people and being on OnlyFans. But actually, the apple didn't fall far from the tree once they saw the money she was pulling in, and their scruples too flew out the window. Notice that term, supporting the family. Today, lots of them are just part of the business that surrounds her. They're her managers, handing out flyers. Apparently her ex-husband helps out as well behind the scenes. In 2022, they were married. Just a year later, he was then cleaning up her stains on hotel mattresses. Needless to say, lots of Aussies weren't nearly as thrilled about what was going on. In fact, so many of them signed a petition to the government that they ended up revoking her visa. So Bonnie Blue just ended up packing up and continuing the show in her home country. pulling the same stunts with 18-year-old university students instead. Later, she even went to Fiji planning on doing the exact same thing, although it's unclear how successful she actually was. Other than that, Bonnie Blue hasn't shied away from breaking other taboos and potentially breaking up entire families. She's been vocal about her preference for married men and fathers as well as their sons, a perfect marketing scheme playing on the trends on adult content sites. This is all a calculated strategy to create as much outrage as possible so that she gets more attention and thus more money. Like we can see with the story she told where she slept with both a father and a son one after another, then heard the dad say, "Don't tell your mother about this," after they left.
I let the son go first. So, well, to be fair honest, I'd already slept with their son a few days before.
Oh.
And then in the queue, I saw someone with I didn't know it was their dad. I just saw someone with a much older guy. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just someone older. And he was like, oh, this is my dad. And I was thinking, oh my God, his dad's going to tell me off. Or I don't know, the dad's going to say something to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the story was that he was actually just quite jealous that his son had got to sleep with me. So then we did a father and son.
These stories all work to create a narrative, to make you wonder what's really going on in these videos. It's all a calculated ploy just to get her more famous. You'll see a pattern with all of her statements and interviews and her actions on camera, all designed to gain the most amount of attention possible. Bonnie Blue knows that controversy is what sells. She knows that the men that hate her the most want to actually watch these videos the most, and that her long string of controversial moments has only pushed her career further and further, all with the backing of her own family.
Your father's okay with this?
Yeah, he's more than proud. His back of his phone case is like a QR code to my OnlyFans.
I can imagine how proud he is.
How does it make you feel though?
I'm proud of her. I don't mind.
It's gotten her TV interviews, podcast appearances, and enough tabloid articles to fill a Sunday paper. In a way, we're only perpetuating the problem by making this video in the first place. Always this stuff attracts a lot of basic haters pretty understandably, but they don't know that they're acting as her publicist without even realizing. This is all part of her strategy in the first place. Stunts like performing acts at a local football game then getting kicked out of the stadium fit perfectly into this narrative before sneaking in later to do it all over again. And it all just brings us to the thing that Bonnie Blue's most famous for, and the reason why she's a symptom of our corrupted society. Her claim to the world record for sleeping with the most people in a single day. According to her social media posts and the storm of news and media coverage, Bonnie slept with 1,057 men in just a single day. But the logistics alone are hard to believe. In a 12-hour period, taking 2 people at a time non-stop, each person would still only get around 80 seconds each. But while there isn't much real evidence of this, kinda seems like this did actually happen. There are posts she made after the fact and pictures of this desperate queue of men. One woman even found that her boyfriend was among those men in the queue, and they broke up shortly afterwards. He wasn't alone. As Bonnie became more popular, hundreds and later thousands of men lined up waiting for their turn. And imagine the risks a man has to take to line up waiting for their turn on Bonnie Blue. If people ever found out that you went, it would be awful for your reputation. Then there's the hygiene aspect. I mean, Bonnie insists that everyone's been tested, but as we'll soon find out, she isn't afraid of bending the truth.
Sleeping with an adult worker who's fully tested in a safe environment, that should be the least of their worries.
Then there's just the simple fact that lots of people can't imagine anything grosser than this. Standing outside in the cold with hundreds of other men is probably one of the most empty, messy, humiliating, and degenerate experiences you can ever have. And yet so many men have poured onto the streets for hours just to get their magic minute. The fact that there's so many men this desperate speaks to how far men are falling in modern society. Potentially because the very content they're consuming where Bonnie Blue becomes a multi-millionaire from these lonely guys spending all of their cash on this sort of stuff, being so desensitized to adult content since they were around 11 years old. Bonnie Blue often describes what she does as just giving pleasure, nothing more and nothing less, as this interpretation just justifies what she does like some sort of charity. But if it is just pleasure, then surely more pleasure for more people is better, right? Well, this is all part of a wider sexualized move in society, towards devaluing, reducing and stripping things down, taking away the divinity of life, the emotional connection, the build-up, even just the sanctity of love has been completely thrown away and commodified into a product, where the bodily sensation is all that's left, with 2 people who just see each other as a means to an end. And Bonnie Blue's cartoonishly exaggerated stunts are just the epitome of how modern society has cheapened the act itself. Her popularity both with her volunteers and the wider internet just really shows what she does is perfectly designed to fit into modern culture. But this isn't the only way that Bonnie Blue has been able to profit from exploiting modern society. She also allegedly fakes lots of her stunts in an attempt to get more attention. Recently, for example, Bonnie Blue had family members post videos of her being arrested by police. Thanks for all the support in the last 24 hours, her sister wrote in a post. This isn't something we wanted to get out of, but it seems there is no privacy for her anymore. Yours sincerely, Tia's sister. Immediately, people began wondering what this was all about. Maybe she broke public indecency laws, or maybe she went under the legal age limit that she's been pushing for years. Instead though, people soon realized that this was almost certainly a fake marketing stunt, and that nearly everything her sister said was probably a lie. The police car's license plate then matched a prop car often used in movies and TV shows. It's this single-minded pursuit of attention that wins in our online attention-based economy, where degeneracy, extremity, and pure narcissism are awarded above all else. Bonnie Blue realized this and is willing to do absolutely anything so long as it contributes to this ultimate goal, including faking all of this stuff so she naturally floats to the top and finally becomes recognized and famous, no matter what for. And because it's been working so well for her, it's spurring on a whole other generation of girls to do the exact same thing. People like Lily Phillips have emulated her playbook in every single way. She's pulled the exact same stunts, and she's most likely faked being arrested as well. Just recently, she also boasted that she actually broke Bonnie's new record by sleeping with 1,113 men in just 12 hours. Meanwhile, Bonnie has now been banned from bands after threatening to pull another stunt in London, this time with her locked in a box open to the public. Fans cited their rule against public stunts, although it comes too little too late really. They were happy to take their cut of massive earnings for years. Now they must calculate that she's more trouble than she's worth. It's almost like Bonnie Blue almost went too far, like she got too much attention and fame from this. Like Icarus, she flew too close to the sun, being seen courtside in basketball games, doing podcasts with people like Andrew Tate, and seemingly being known ubiquitously online. But she isn't exactly a villain in this story. However much money she made, she's still just a pawn on the board, a symptom of a wider, more degenerate problem across the West. I mean, she was only so successful because she fit the mold exactly for what our society rewards nowadays. The real money, billions of dollars, actually making tons of money off real illegal predatory content. Videos of people taken without their consent, videos of crimes, and even worse, which is all then filtered through the platform, which has seen over 100 complaints of non-consensual videos on the site. And these are just the ones that people know about and make a complaint about. With so much decentralized amateur content, it's almost impossible to tell. And the self-proclaimed feminist CEO tells the world that they're making adult content safer. They're giving power back to women by giving them control over their place in the industry and liberating women sexually, which is just classic tech bro drivel designed to cover up their real role in the wider economy, looking to take part the very fabric binding culture and civilization together so they can replace it with their own profit-sucking model instead, commodifying the human body. And by having so many of these band stars loudly and proudly discuss the money they make, whether it be 1 million or 5 million a month, they continue to hope this will tempt other people into giving this a try, to selling their body for clicks online. And we already know that the average person is never going to make any real money from this, and will actually end up ruining their life because of this, giving away their privacy and dignity permanently once the content is out there. Which is just the real tragedy of Bonnie Blue. She entered into the industry in the same way as thousands of other women. Where others failed, she excelled because she was willing to go further than anyone else. Now she acts as a living billboard for the benefits of it all, luring people into a decision that can have lifelong consequences. A 28-year-old software developer from Atlanta wakes up alone .
You can't just say shit and then get away with saying it. I'm going to debunk you, and then you're going to respond to it. Now, if you can't handle the fact that I was able to prove you wrong, and that's why you're trying to move on, well, then just be honest about it. Either concede or fucking respond.
Well, that's one way to treat someone who disagrees with you in a debate. For those of you who don't know, this is Dean Withers, who is a part of that Zoomer politics group with that kid Parker who is in all the Jubilee episodes, and Harry Sisson, who said, "I'm a straight 22-year-old. I can assure you that no one believes that."
Any man who must say, "I am the king," is no true king.
Anyway, Dean is 20 years old, and him and his little friend group are popular on TikTok, but today we're going to talk about his YouTube channel because that's a lot easier to deal with in an editing program. Dean is a debate bro, which is an entire meta and type of content creator that's annoyed me a lot over the past 10 years, because most of these people seem to be creators who are a lot more concerned with farming a viral clip where they got an epic own for their audience, rather than to actually try to understand the viewpoint of the person who disagrees with them. Dean is a perfect example of this type of influencer, as it is immediately obvious when you watch him that he will do anything to make his opponent look like a complete piece of shit. Evidence of that is in a video called, "These MAGA Fanatics Are Out of Control."
What's up, Crisco? Do you support Trump?
Yeah, I supported his ability to remove man for women sports. I'm a girl dad, and so my daughters both compete on a high level, and I would never want them to have to compete against a male because we are naturally stronger.
I don't know how like the right has successfully convinced you to like place 12 trans women over the 66 million American women and girls that have lost their human rights / access to abortion, or the fact that more women have accused Donald Trump of raping them than there is trans women competing in the NCAA. I just think that there's much larger concerns here.
What does that have to do with what the caller was talking about? Like, where the hell did abortion come from? The caller said his biggest reason for why he voted for Trump is because Trump is against trans women in sports, and Dean immediately shifts to whatever he wants to talk about to make the caller look stupid. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that Dean didn't even wait 10 seconds to do this. Like, this is literally the first thing that happens in the video. It's like the guy says, "Yeah, I love cooking and I think I have a great pancake recipe." And Dean responds, "Did you know that Hitler liked pancakes?" So I guess we're gonna talk about whatever Dean wants to talk about now.
So you just
The reason why we're all here today is because of a woman. And you telling her she can't vote?
I have to put it on my channel. So the title of this video is "Why White Men Are So Angry. Very Smart Brothers." Okay, just watch this. I'm gonna be responding. It's gonna rip this fucker up. Who names themselves Very Smart Brothers? It's just like, really? You think you're really smart? Okay, tell me what you think, really smart dude.
Why?
Oh my god, look at this dude. I mean, yeah, he does biceps, not enough to see any veins. You're just chilling there, and they're not really intimidating. But look at his shoulders, right? I can't tell where the tricep really ends and the deltoid starts. Bro, you need to do some fucking shoulders and your limp ass traps. his shoulders hang down because his traps can't lift up his biceps. He's like, "Yo, I use a 45-pound dumbbell when I crawl." Okay, little fucker, go do it like that. Come back and talk to me. Your bitch ass sunglasses. Normal glasses. Oh my goodness, I can just tell this dude, and he needs to get braces. He's not gonna do it though because, you know, he thinks it's a statement or some shit. His nappy ass hair and nasty ass neck beard. He's literally a neck beard. This racist neck beard is gonna tell you why he's so angry. He's already pissing me off.
Why are white men so angry? Seriously, why are white men so angry? You would think that people broke into their houses at midnight, put a gun to their head, and forced them to season some chicken.
Yeah, dude. Domestic invasion, which black people do to white people at much higher rates than white people do to black people. That's a fact. Is funny to joke about. Fucking retard. Very smart brother. Oh, he's very smart. I can already tell. He's some very smart neckbeard brother. Yep.
White men exist in a country where they receive perpetual validation. They run all of the Fortune 500 companies.
That is a minority of white people. It's not every white dude is a Fortune 500 company CEO. Are you kidding me? Not everything is validated to us. Why are we so angry? Maybe it's because shit like this. White men account for 70% of Michigan suicides. And you don't give a fuck. Okay. Okay, very smart dude. Keep telling me how I'm supposed to be privileged.
They are most of our elected officials. They are.
Yeah, because everybody's a president, right? Fucking, I gotta, man.
Most of our police officers.
Oh yes.
Remember that scene in Coming to America were
This Dumbo-eared motherfucker with looking like an egg with his nappy ass hair. I'm gonna take a brown egg and I'm gonna use a Sharpie and draw this motherfucker's face on it. I'll crack that bitch into a protein shake. Like, oh, it's so easy. Very smart, brothers. His dumbass tattoos, his weak ass forms. Oh my goodness. And he's kind of sit up like he's like, yeah, I'm a nerd that kind of lift. No, you don't. You hit arm day twice a week. Shut the fuck up.
Cleo McDowell discovered that Akeem was actually a prince and had his own money.
The boy has got his own money.
And if you pull out any cash, you will find a white man's face on it.
Are you kidding me? Do you know who started this country? Am I gonna go to Zimbabwe and complain that I don't see white people's faces on the money? No, they got a lot of black people faces on that money. What, $1 million bills or bullshit? Okay. Yeah, dude, because white people founded the country, I'm more privileged than you, and I'm not allowed to be angry. You are such a dumb, ignorant motherfucker, and you're goofy looking as hell.
Like, how can you be angry if every time you look at money in your country, your face is on it?
Because you're taking it from our wallets? Because welfare is draining the taxpayer resources, right? And single mothers, majority black females, those strong, independent women they are, taking my money because they can't afford to raise their 7 fucking kids. Okay, dude.
America is basically Wakanda for white men. White men are amplified and celebrated and honored so frequently that it is
That's me, dude. I just run down New York City in a suit with a trophy, be like, I got this because I'm white. This dumb fuck has no idea what it's like to be a white person. He's just like, all the white people over there running around in suits with trophies. Go to fucking West Virginia, you dumb, ignorant hipster fuck. Okay, dude? And then tell me why we're gonna be not allowed to be angry.
literally news when an honor is extended to someone who is not a white man. Yet despite all of this, they are our angriest firefighters.
I want that dude swinging an axe to save me.
Our angriest hipsters.
Really? At least they're not the most racist hipsters. That's your honor.
Our angriest presidents.
Oh, of course. The throwing Trumps.
And it's like, yo, why the hell are you all so angry? Every week, it seems like.
This dude, I can't just keep roasting him. We gotta get through this video.
There's a new national instance of white men taking their anger out on innocent people.
Okay, he's gonna take individual cases of millions of people and blame it on all the white men, right? And, you know, I don't expect a lot from a dude that writes articles like, straight black men are the white people of black people. Okay, any of my black subscribers, this guy does not, he's a racist to everybody. Like, stop, dude. Don't let him pull this bullshit. Damn. We need to unite as men against, like, it's just like, if I was talking to my friend, right? He's just like, you know, he's a black guy. He's like, racism is a problem. I'm like, yes, there are like systematic oppressions between white people and black people, disparities, right? You could say it's economic. And I was like, let's say that's 13%. I conceded. You know, I don't think it's as much as people say they are, but let's just say it's 13% is the stat between conviction rates, I think, or some, you can cite me. Anyhow, between men and women, it's like double. So I'm like, let's not unite in racial groups if we're gonna fight this fight. Brothers, join me. Save your waifus. I'm telling you, thoughts over bots. Never. That's what they say. It's gotta be bots, right? Sex bots. Are you team bot? I'm team bot.
White male anger looks like Dylan Roof. White.
Okay. So black male anger looks like every day in Chicago. How much is that? Like Dylan Roof killed what? No more than a couple people. So what do you think a month in Chicago is? That black male anger? No, there's white people oppressing black people so they kill each other. Of course.
White male anger looks like a police officer shooting Stephon Clark 20 times.
Yeah, that's bullshit. But what do you call it when white people are dying of opioids like crazy? Or when the majority of murders interracially go from black to white? Is that blackmail anger? Is that white people oppressing themselves? Okay? Yeah, there's bullshit all around.
While he was unarmed in his backyard. White male anger looks like that happening over and over and over.
Over and over. You named a specific case. I named a bunch of shit. Chicago happens every month, you dumb fuck. Do you ever talk about that? Of course not. Because you're some rich hipster.
And where people who are not white men are forced to deal with this anger and are victims of it. And I guess the question isn't so much why white men are so angry, but what is the end game of this anger? What is their ultimate purpose for stockpiling all these weapons?
He wants to take your weapons. Okay, dude. Do you want to see why? Do you want to see some black man anger? Okay. What's it say? Gang rape fuels Italian anger at migrants. Is that blackmail anger? All these black migrants gang raping European girls? Are you gonna fucking say anything about that? No. How about schools must look beyond dead white men to make the curriculum more diverse? Teacher union chief says. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Oh my, and all these racist articles about white men I was just looking up for this video. You guys are ridiculous.
What is their ultimate reasoning for marching with tiki torches on college towns?
Okay, what about the Islamic crowds marching around London demanding Sharia? Or the Netherlands? Or Germany? Or the no-go zones in France? Or all those, ISIS fighters that are coming back to Europe? What the fuck are you gonna call that? Okay, if you're making these cases against white people in America, where, they don't commit the same disproportional rate of crimes as black people by the stats, what are you gonna say about migrants? Okay? Are you gonna say anything about them? Of course not, because you just hate white people. Tim Dodson, you dumb fuck.
You will not replace us!
We know the answers to the...
I mean, they're angry that the demographics are changing in the country. I don't agree with their identity politics on racial lines. I don't really agree with identity politics in general. But, dude, they're gonna get pissed off and pissed off and pissed off, and you're not helping this.
These questions. Which is why when we're asking why are white men so angry, what we're really asking is there a way to insulate ourselves from this anger?
Yeah, dude. There's a way to insulate yourself from white men getting angry. You can go move to Somalia. There's not a lot of white people there. Or, you could probably move to Lebanon, right? So, I don't know, man. You can choose any African nation you want to get away from white people. Tell me how it goes when you're getting your little bitch-ass arm cut off with a machete. They're like, it's a small specimen. It has no meat. anywhere, but it has some biceps, so we'll take the arms to go. And you're like, no, there's no white. Where's the white anger? It's the patriarchy cutting off my arm, machete slap.
And will the anger of white men eventually kill us all? I'm Damien.
Dude, just please move. Just go to Africa, please.
Young. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to VSB so we can have enough money to buy glasses to drink all the white tears.
Look at his smug, bitch ass frame with his goofy ass looking watch and scene kid girl. Like, his pants look like what my scene kid girlfriends I was banging. They'd wear little tight pants like that, and in theater, I'm like, oh, we're gonna go. He's wearing a bitch's pants because he's got bitch think. Okay, fuck this racist. I just can't stand the first time I saw him. If you guys like that kind of video, let me know in the comments. Don't subscribe to him. If you want to subscribe to him, just don't subscribe to me. And yeah, that was my pitch. Very, very rational argument I made there. I know. And see you next video, guys. Hey guys, it's Undead Chronic, back again with another response video. I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to shoot for putting out one video a day cause your boy be busy as hell. But I just got some beautiful mango kush, and I just cleaned out the bong with that 95% isopropyl alcohol. It's real clean. I put some ice cubes in it, some water, put that bitch in the fridge, and it's icy. I just took a hit and I saw this shit on YouTube. And holy shit, we got a good one, boys. I'm responding to ASIS put out a video titled The Challenges of Dating as a Black Woman. And these hoes are nasty, so let's just get into it.
My dating history has pretty much been me dating. Oh, I don't even know how to talk about this.
I'm married and.
Hey, I didn't know Bigfoot's sister had a YouTube channel. All you white rednecks out there looking for Bigfoot, here is your evidence. His sister is out in public. Let's get a genetic sample to see just how hairy she is down there.
And we met when we were 12. Prior to 12, I haven't really dated much. We did have a short break during college, and so
she met this beta when she was 12, had a short break that she filled with long objects during college, and he came back to marry her. Absolutely disgusting. Yo, this doesn't go just for black guys, but Asian dudes, white dudes, you have a girl before she leaves for college, and she comes back and she wants to get with you, you're the second choice. This is especially a problem with my Asian bros. You get that Asian girl, she's kind of nice, your parents know each other. Then she goes to college and rides every single white Chad because it gives her the fifis. All of a sudden, you got an engineering degree, and this Asian broad with some liberal arts degree is trying to hit you up after riding mile and mile of Chad. Stay strong and stay away from these bitches.
I was dating around then and just meeting new people. I went to a predominantly white school, and so that was a little hard. It seemed like the non-black people didn't want to date black girls, but then also the black guys didn't want to date black girls. So I was caught in between a rock and a hard place.
She was, oh God! I forgot what was I gonna say. Hey, this is the kind of fat cousin you see once a year at Thanksgiving that comes up and goes, hey, do you have any games on your phone?
I think my dating life is a bit different from my friends because I have a pretty diverse friend group, but I did notice, like, especially in college, like, again, like, we would go to, like, frat parties, and, like, I would get approached, but, like, it would be evident that they would be approached way more. or like we'd be like on dating apps and like we'd be swiping the same amount, like they would get more responses than me.
Is it because you're black? Or is it because you look like a war pig? You're looking like a character from Fat Albert up in this. What kind of shirt is he wearing that's sleeveless? Look, just lose 50 pounds, work on the head game, come back later. Oh, maybe not. Those look like a serrated upgrade on this Fallout 4 weapon. Oh, damn. Undead Chronic's getting scared.
And they would be like, oh, like, Akis, why don't you date more? Or like this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I want to date, but it seems as if like people like see me and they it's almost like they see my blackness.
No, I'm just seeing the massive amounts of subcutaneous fat and that just horrible style. You look like a fat dude. You look like an offensive lineman in middle school. Yeah, your parents want you to lose weight, so they make you go on the football team. The football coaches want you to gain weight, so your fat ass can block their sons. It's quite sad, but she's gonna blame it on being black because, you know, it's like self-accountability, taking care of yourself, being a feminist. They don't really go together.
Before they see me as a person.
Men are generally...
I am sick of all these fat black women named Asia. There's cultural appropriation. This bitch is continentally appropriating the entire Asian peninsula. Why do leftists allow this discrimination against my yellow brothers?
Scared of black women. I think it's partially because of there was like one point of view of a black woman or maybe just like a couple points of views of a black woman like in the media and on TV and in the movies for a very long time. I just feel like there's like an intimidation factor, especially if a black woman is educated or black woman is a leader or black woman is very business oriented. I mean,
are you kidding me? Educated Michelle Obama. She rode the right dick and she was wife of the president. So educated, so much hard work. She really bounced on that Obama cock left and right to get to her position of power. In the middle, is that Maxine Waters? Did they take Skeletor and put her in the tanning salon and forget about her? And Oprah, you know what? I'd cream Oprah left and right if I could see any of that money. So I'm not intimidated by Oprah. I would serve her like the wonderful fat wallet, goddess that she is.
Immediately it's like, fall back. I've literally had guys tell me like, I feel like you're further along in your life and your career.
Look at that face. That's the face she's gonna have when she realizes she can't have kids. I would just tell her, you know, I feel that you're just further along on the BO spectrum because I could smell you through that hoodie and through the shitty ass tank top you probably have on under.
And I need to catch up to that. I want her.
Okay, Jasmine. Tell me this chick doesn't look like an autistic, obese Cabbage Patch Kid that got bedazzled by a bunch of fairies in the garden. Oh, this will make her attractive. Clink, clink. Oh, you just put all kinds of rings in this bitch.
100% think that black women are seen differently when it comes to dating. I mean, black women are some of the strongest women on this planet. And I feel like when it comes to dating, that has to really go into dating.
She thinks that she's intimidating because she's black. Okay, you have what people on the left call light skin privilege. And maybe if you lost 120 pounds, take off all those rings and, you know, I just want to attach a yoke to you and see. Undead Chronic wants to buy a farm out in Nebraska, take this big black bitch out, attach a yoke to her face, and plow 300 acres. I bet she could do it. Shit, she's carrying around the whole block on her.
People look at strength and be like, oh, she's too loud, she's too outspoken, and no, that's just like being a black woman.
I feel like there's a stigma on black women where it's like they're loud or angry or obnoxious and they like can't be free or take a joke or anything like that. And like I was not that person, but I felt like that was what was put on me. It felt like.
And honestly, that sucks to have stereotypes put on you. Kind of like black men don't get looked at by black women because the black women think of their deadbeat dads who bounced. And they think, he's just gonna bounce after he gets with me. But no. It's only black women who experience negative stereotypes.
I was a bit intimidating for them as compared to my other friends. Like, they would all like go out to parties and like they would be the first ones to get danced with even though they couldn't dance.
Wow. Were they white? Do you think every white girl can't dance? Please, Miss Black Woman, talk about the unfair stereotypes that you experienced.
But, you know, like, it just felt kind of like unfair.
It's interesting because
Oh my goodness. Where do they find these hoes? Low key, you ever get on the bottom, under a highway, 35 north, coming from Oklahoma City? Give this bitch one hit off your crack pipe, you'll get a blowjob for 3 hours all the way to Wichita.
I feel like when I was growing up, the only perspective or voice that I was listening to was society. And so I felt like I had to feel undesirable.
Okay, is this a thing? Why did this bitch only gel her bangs? What is she sweating? Did she just come from a bukkake shoot? What is going on with this jean jacket? I'm sorry guys, I just roasting too much. I need to let the woman speak.
Because society said I wasn't desirable because of all of those conventions. And I feel like through time and like educating myself and all that stuff, I'm like, I can recognize that I'm not what society says we're supposed to deem attractive. That doesn't mean that I don't feel good about myself or that I don't find myself attractive.
I think that
Sequoia. Call this bitch Sacagawea. She looks like the Predator's little son.
am the right type of black woman appearance-wise, meaning I have a big butt, pretty much.
Oh, well, I'm attracted. Hey, Sequoia, zombiekush05@gmail.com. Let's see how big that butt is. Maybe we could work something out.
And like a smaller waist. But I think my skin color is the detriment to a lot of people. Like I'll often hear, I've never been interested in a dark-skinned girl before. You're the first dark-skinned girl I thought was pretty, whatever.
Okay, guys, if you are trying to smash the exquisite dark fruit from the plains of the sub-Saharan like this wonderful flower, don't fucking say that she's the first dark-skinned girl that you thought was pretty. You gotta tell her you think all dark, you think it would work. It's like, oh, she's special, but you just gotta go and be like, I love me a dark girl. Is it purple down there? Hey, I'll let you suck on this purple. You let me suck on that purple. Whew.
That's not fun. It's not cute things to hear.
That's not a compliment because you're saying like of the dark skins who you deem ugly, you're the prettiest of the ugly, which
I'll be honest, the most useful thing this girl has is this dark skin against skin cancer, because she has no discipline. She has all this hardware in that nose. It's kind of looking like, you guys ever have dots, like the candy dots? Tell me that nose doesn't look like some kind of brown dot shoved on her face. Little Pinocchio, Frosty the Snowman looking ass.
which makes no sense. Just call us beautiful women, which is what we are. All black women are beautiful regardless of your shade.
I want people to know.
Oh, and there it is. All black women are beautiful regardless. Okay, well, you change the meaning of beautiful then, because you compare beauty between women. See, this girl right here, I'm gonna say she can get it. I'm not even looking at the booty, I'm just taking her on the word. But that girl with the nose ring and autistic Cabbage Patch bitch, they're only gonna be useful on a farmstead.
So that dating as a black woman comes with a lot of things that other people might not expect. So black men might not realize how painful or problematic their comments might be. I don't want to lump all black men together, but the black men that say these types of things might not realize how painful or detrimental their comments might be, but they are. White women might not realize exactly what black women are going through, but we are going through these things that's specific to being a black woman.
You don't understand what white men are going through. You might be thinking, white men have it so much better than black women. Bullshit. White men have to pay for black women, aka single moms, uselessly producing bastards left and right. And it's not just white men. Black men who are financially successful also have to pay for useless black mothers left and right and their bastards. Okay, you take all those useless hood rat black mothers, add in some white trailer trash single mothers, and it's a clusterfuck of bastards. Okay, so as a percentage wise, black women receive the most welfare. So you are being supported in large part by men. Men that you didn't even give the chance to let them cream you when you were young. So they didn't get to enjoy that young pussy, but they have to pay for your bastards indirectly. Black women, get your shit together.
And dating that white women aren't experiencing. And I just want people to realize that it's different.
Don't immediately like see a black woman and automatically assume that she's one type of way, because you don't know her. So don't assume because of what society has told you or what you've seen on TV or what you've read in books or like what you've seen in music videos that that's the kind of person she is, because you wouldn't do that for any other type of woman. So there's no reason why you should do it for black women.
Oh, but you bitches would do it to black men. And you bitches and all leftist bitches do it to white men. So, again, it's only bad when it goes against the leftist doctrine. I can't believe they made a 6-minute video bitching. They only found one black woman who might be attractive. Come on.
I want everyone watching to know that black women are beautiful and they are smart and they are fun and they are cool and dope as hell. And if they don't like you, then that's their problem, because you are a queen. You should not have to feel lesser than.
Queens don't have bastards. Come on. Ugh. I can't deal. We only have 40 seconds left. I'm about to have an aneurysm with the sheer stupidity coming off this little thought.
Just because someone does not appreciate you, then that's not the person for you.
I think people need to be okay with being uncomfortable by the truth of other people's experiences, because it's only through that discomfort and that recognition and that willingness to like grapple with it. I think for a lot of us, it's about like just being understood and being heard.
It's also hard to be a black woman dating black men. It's also hard to be a black woman dating white men. It's hard to be a black woman.
It's just the hardest thing in the world. You get all these men working for you and your bastards. You get the leftist media fawning over you. You get to send your baby daddies to prison when they don't pay up child support. You get to abuse your sons if you're the single mother of the household. You get to drop off your kids to your parents' house, grandmama's house, and you don't want to deal with them, so you can extend your thottery on the carousel a bit more. Oh, it's just so hard as a fucking black woman. It's been Undead Chronic, guys. Take it easy.
The Laos book. And that's the collaboration with Papadakis and Meyendorff, book 4 in the church history series, because Papadakis and Meyendorff understand the theology really well. So you get a much more theologically dense volume in this one than you get in the other.
Reservations about George Bush's Gulf War plans, while the neocons fervently supported the attack against Israel's most dangerous regional rival, Iraq. Pat Buchanan held important positions in both the Nixon and Reagan administrations, And then he was a nationally syndicated columnist with a huge television footprint on Crossfire, the McLaughlin Group, and other popular cable shows. The ADL and other Jewish groups ferociously attacked the pundit when he declared to his national television audience of millions, quote, this is Patrick Buchanan, Capitol Hill is Israeli-occupied territory. This is 35 years ago. We're supporting Israel's war. Jewishness, whether it's essential. That's the distinction. Now, the article from UNS goes on. It says, Pat Buchanan decided to challenge George Bush in the Republican primaries, a development that seemed likely to spark an explosive public conflict between the heavily Jewish neocons and their traditionalist conservative rivals, very much like what is happening today. William F. Buckley Jr., who was the founder of National Review, had long reigned as the quasi-pope of the conservatives. He attempted to preempt this looming conflict by publishing a book called In Search of Anti-Semitism, a massive 40,000-word article that filled an entire issue of his magazine, National Review, and was later released as a book, coming down on the side of the neocons and sharply criticizing his erstwhile allies like Buchanan and Sobran. So this was the episode, think about it, this was the episode in the 1990s. George H.W. Bush, again, from Yale College, from Skull and Bones, George Bush, the vice president from Yale, from the CIA, who became the president, brought us to war in Iraq at the behest of the neocons. Pat Buchanan, Joseph Sobran, Sam Francis, Russell Kirk, the traditional conservatives rise up and say, this is not America first. This is a war for Israel. Capitol Hill is Israeli-occupied territory, and so is the conservative movement. And the reason they're supporting the war is because they're Jewish. Pat Buchanan challenges the incumbent president, George Bush, in 1992 in the Republican primary and almost wins in New Hampshire, gets a surprising amount of support, and threatens to fracture the movement. By serving as a spoiler in that GOP primary in 1992, Buchanan inspires Ross Perot to run as a third party. And some people blame Pat Buchanan and Ross Perot for George Bush's defeat in 1992. Does this sound similar? 8 years later, Tucker Carlson comes out and says what? It's okay to criticize neocons and their wars. It's okay to criticize the Israel lobby. It's okay to talk about the sovereignty of the military. He said what's beyond the pale is this insistence on talking about Judaism, saying that Jewish Americans have to support Israel, saying that non-Jews will die in wars that Jewish push America into. He said that is what is truly anti-Semitic. That is beyond the pale. This mirrors exactly the situation right now, which is that the Israel lobby once again is pushing us into a war in Iran. Who is Donald Trump's vice president right now? J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, who went to Yale Law School, who is a protege of Peter Thiel, one of the CIA's most important contractors because he built Palantir. And as we talked about last week, J.D. Vance would not exist, would not have had a Senate seat, would not be Trump's vice president without Peter Thiel and actually Tucker Carlson. So just as then, George Bush, head of the CIA from Yale, vice president under Reagan, becomes president, puts us to war in Iraq, as it is now. J.D. Vance, protege of CIA contractor Peter Thiel from Yale Law School. Trump is pushing us into war with Iran at the behest of the neocons. I get up in 2024 and say, do not vote for Trump. This is Israeli-occupied territory. The only people that want a war in Iran are the Israelis in their amen corner. And just as in 1999, what does Tucker Carlson come out and say about me? He said, there are legitimate critics of the neocons like Joe Kent and Vance, but Fuentes is crazy and hateful. He is kooky and an anti-Semite. It's the same situation 30 years ago over a different war and the same monologue, canceling what is really the same figure, relatively the same figure, in exactly the same way. As I said at the beginning of the show, this is a story of generations. This story, like all stories, is a story of generations, fathers and sons, and cycles and networks, and the rise and fall of nations. So you could say that in the 1990s, there was a different generation of this battle. There were the paleocons and the neocons, just as there are now. Paleocons, America Firsters, and neocons. But I want to focus a little bit more on William F. Buckley, because as Ron Unz writes in his article, the major attack against Pat Buchanan did not come from Tucker Carlson. At that time, Tucker Carlson was a very low-level journalist, barely got on television, and was not really into public broadcasting. And his attack on Buchanan came in 1999, many years after the initial controversy in 1991. The major attack against Buchanan came from William F. Buckley, who at that time, if you understand anything about the history of the conservative movement, William F. Buckley was considered the intellectual leader of the conservative movement in America. Ron Unz calls him the quasi-pope. And it was William F. Buckley who founded National Review in the 1950s, at the beginning of the Cold War, after World War II. It was William F. Buckley that throughout the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, he is the one that really created the modern doctrine of conservatism. He was behind Barry Goldwater in 1964. He was the intellectual heavyweight behind the fusionist coalition that brought Reagan to power in 1980. So William F. Buckley was the leader of the conservatives, in many ways similar to Tucker Carlson today, or you could argue somebody like Ben Shapiro, or somebody like Charlie Kirk. William F. Buckley was dominant. I would argue more dominant than any of them today, back in the 1980s and 1990s. As I said, William F. Buckley wrote a 40,000-word hit piece on Buchanan in 1991 called In Search of Anti-Semitism, filled up a whole issue of the magazine, published as a book, and it sought to cancel Pat Buchanan and push him out of the race so that he could not challenge George Bush in 1992. Now, I want to talk about who William F. Buckley is, because when we work through the biography of William F. Buckley, we're going to discover some startling themes, some startling patterns. And you'll notice there's many of these patterns that show up over and over and over again in consistent themes. Before we get into William F. Buckley, it is important to talk about the CIA and where the CIA came from and how the CIA operates, what its mission is, among other things. Because again, if you go back to last week, my criticism of Tucker Carlson, the central question is Tucker Carlson in the CIA? We talked about his father. We talked about Voice of America. He accused me of being in the CIA. He attacked Pat Buchanan along the same lines that William F. Buckley did 10 years earlier. I want to talk about the CIA and establish some important things to understand about how they operate first, to understand all these stories. So where did the CIA actually come from? The CIA is established in 1947, but it was preceded by an organization called the OSS. And this was a wartime intelligence organization that was started during World War II in the aftermath of some sabotage attacks in New York City and other espionage that was happening during the war on the part of the Germans and the Axis powers that we were fighting. So the OSS forms up. That's the precursor to the CIA. It's a wartime intelligence outfit. Now, we're not going to go into all the particulars and details. There's a couple of things we need to understand about the CIA during World War II and shortly afterward at the beginning of the Cold War. In the first place, some of the most important sources, confidential sources that provided human intelligence for the OSS during World War II came through Italy. The United States invades Italy in 1943. They take over the Italian peninsula, and this is like their springboard into the European continent to fight Hitler and to fight the European Axis powers. The OSS rapidly establishes themselves inside of Italy. And one of the biggest sources of intelligence during the war for the OSS was Jewish refugees that fled Nazi-occupied territory through Italy. The Nazis occupied a vast swath of territory in Germany, in Austria, all over Northern Europe, where a lot of Jews lived. And when the Jews were fleeing Nazi captivity or persecution, they fled to Italy, where they were not going to be subjected to some of the anti-Semitic policies, and ultimately where they were liberated by the United States when the U.S. invaded and landed there. Now, the Jewish refugees fled Germany and Austria into Italy, and they provided a massive source of confidential intelligence for U.S. wartime intelligence. And you have to understand why that is. Those Jewish refugees had information about Germany, about Austria. What's more, they spoke the language. They spoke German. They spoke the lingua franca of the Nazi Empire. Also, they were hostile to the Nazi Empire, being Jews. So these Jews that were leaving Nazi Germany, these are like ready-made intelligence units because they hate the enemy, they speak the enemy's language, and they used to live on the enemy's territory. So very quickly, in the 1940s, U.S. wartime intelligence is using these Jewish refugees to get information on the Nazis. They're using Jewish refugees as intelligence agents, penetrating Nazi Germany along the border. The person that ran this intelligence operation was a guy named James Jesus Angleton. He was in charge of all of the OSS operations on the Italian peninsula, and he got in charge a little bit later, but he got there in 1943 with the rest of the Allies. And it was Angleton who was running this operation. And Angleton saw the value of these Jewish refugees as intelligence officers. They were a great asset for what would become the CIA. This is important to understand. Now, later on, of course, the Allies win World War II, we defeat Nazi Germany, and in the next 5 years after the war is won, the United States enters a Cold War with the Soviet Union. And all of a sudden, the Soviet Union becomes the primary adversary. 1947, the OSS becomes the CIA. James Angleton becomes one of the founding fathers of the CIA. And he is put in charge of being a liaison between U.S. intelligence and foreign intelligence agencies. 1948, the State of Israel is declared. They declare their independence. They fight a brief war with the Arabs. The U.S. recognizes them. And James Angleton begins liaising with Israeli intelligence as part of his job description, founding father of the CIA, running counterintelligence, and working as a liaison with our allied intel agencies. Pursuant to the emerging Cold War, the Soviet Union became our primary adversary. But there was a big problem. An Iron Curtain had descended onto Europe. The Soviets were not letting anybody leave the Soviet Union or, later on, the Warsaw Pact countries. The Soviet Union was a closed-off society. Joseph Stalin made it like a fortress. And so, in the early days of the CIA, in the early days of the Cold War, we had no knowledge of what was happening inside the Soviet Union. We had no human intelligence, no sources that were inside of Russia, and Stalin had created this impenetrable fortress. There was no way to get in. That is until the 1950s. During the 1950s, there was a major aliyah, and aliyah is when the Jewish people leave their country from the diaspora and go to Israel. There's been many waves of aliyahs over the years. I think there's 6 or 7 major aliyahs. This is when a Jew makes their pilgrimage, they leave, and they return to the Holy Land to reside in Israel. In the 1950s, there was a major aliyah of Jews. Russia had a massive Jewish population. They left the Soviet Union and went to Israel. James Angleton understood the value of Jewish refugees as an intelligence source. Just as in Italy during World War II, Austrian and German Jews were very helpful human sources to tell us secrets about Nazi Germany, and they spoke the language, and they carried out operations, and they knew about those countries in which they resided. Angleton, now running the foreign desk at the newly created CIA, he saw the value in Jewish refugees that left the Soviet Union and went to Israel. And so James Angleton began a working relationship with the Israeli intelligence agencies like Shin Bet and Mossad. And a quid pro quo relationship was established. Israel understood, just like Angleton did, the value of the intelligence that the Jews leaving Russia had for the United States. And Israel was not going to give that intelligence away for free. As the Jewish refugees left Russia and came into Israel, the Israeli intelligence agencies like Shin Bet would pick them up off the street and interview them. They would gather all the information and put them under confidence. They would gather all the information that the Russian Jewish refugees had, and they would go to their liaison from the CIA, James Angleton, and they would offer him a deal. The Israeli intelligence agencies would say, if you give us American intelligence on our adversaries, like Egypt and Syria, if you give us intelligence on nuclear weapons, then we will give you the intelligence from our Jewish refugees that left Russia. That was the quid pro quo relationship that went from the 1950s until Angleton left the Israel desk in the early 1970s. So from the very beginning, from the 40s during the time of the OSS in World War II, through to the beginning and the height of the Cold War in the time of the CIA, you have to understand that U.S. intelligence and Israeli intelligence, in particular Jewish refugees, were inextricably connected. So much so, many people talk about the assassination of John F. Kennedy and the role of the CIA in it. People point to James Angleton. James Angleton managed a team of hundreds of people with a black budget. Many of them oversaw the handling of John F. Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald. The people that opened Lee Harvey Oswald's mail and read it, the people that met with him in real life, they were Jewish. They were Jewish refugees from Russia. And they were a part of Angleton's hand-picked team working with a black budget, liaising with the state of Israel. The CIA and Israeli intelligence from the jump were intertwined like this. And the reason for this is not hard to understand. This is another thing to comprehend about the CIA before we get into William F. Buckley. James Jesus Angleton was not Jewish. He was American. He came from Idaho. And you might say, was he Jewish? Was he secretly Jewish? What was the motivation? It was pretty simple. James Angleton was a virulent and fierce anti-communist. He would do anything to fight the Soviet Union. And in the 1950s, when we had no idea what was happening in Russia, he would do anything to get his hands on intelligence about Russia and about the Soviet Union, even if it meant working with the Israelis, even if it meant giving the Israelis classified information about nuclear weapons. What's more, James Angleton saw Israel as an ally against the Soviet Union in the Middle East. After 1955, Egypt and Syria were armed by the Soviet Union. They received weapons, tanks, planes, and over the 50s, 60s, and 70s, moved further and further into the orbit of the Soviet Union. And on the great chessboard of communism versus capitalism during the Cold War, the CIA and the Defense Department, all these different anti-communists, they saw Israel as a bulwark against Soviet communist influence in the Middle East. So that was the basis of their cooperation. Just like in World War II, they wanted to defeat the Nazis so that the United States could liberate Europe. During the Cold War, they wanted to defeat the Soviet Union. That's why they backed Israel and used Jews as an intelligence agency, effectively. Something else was created in the 1950s. This is the last thing we need to establish about the CIA before we get into William F. Buckley. What the CIA was really worried about in the 1950s was the ideological battle that the communists were waging on America. Because in addition to the Cold War being an arms race, a space race, being fought in proxy wars in Asia, Latin America, and in the Middle East, it was also an ideological battle. And in the same way that the Soviet Union was providing weapons and building nuclear weapons and doing all of these conventional or non-conventional military activities, the Soviet Union was also supporting an international communist element. They were backing communist political parties. They were backing communist book clubs, campus organizations, backing communist intellectuals. And if you know anything about the Red Scare, which happened in the 20s and then again in the 50s, and really was in place throughout the duration of the existence of the Soviet Union, the US government and CIA, first the FBI, then the CIA, were very concerned about communist and Soviet penetration of American society through the use of spies, double agents, pushing communist ideology. So just like the Soviets, the CIA also engaged in an information ideological war. The Soviets gave weapons, the CIA gave weapons. The Soviets fought proxy wars, so did the CIA. The Soviets developed a space program for the purpose of missiles, so did the CIA with Project Paperclip. And just like the Soviet Union had communist ideological allies all across the world, so did the CIA. In the 1950s, the CIA backed a program called the Congress for Cultural Freedom. And I'll read this blurb about it. This is from Wikipedia. It says, in 1950, a group of intellectuals founded an organization called the Congress for Cultural Freedom with the aim of consolidating an anti-totalitarian intellectual community around the globe. The CCF's connections with the United States CIA were definitively established 16 and 17 years later in reports by the New York Times and Ramparts magazine, respectively. They claimed that the CIA, operating through a series of dummy foundations, had been instrumental in organizing and funding the CCF. Two people who were critical at the very beginning, and this will be important later, are Irving Kristol and James Burnham. They were both there in Berlin, in West Germany, at the founding of the CCF. Congress for Cultural Freedom in the 50s and 60s claimed to be an organization of pro-freedom intellectuals, many of them liberal. Many of them were left-wing or center-left liberal. And the claim of the Congress for Cultural Freedom is that they were leftists or liberals against radicalism, against communism. Some of them were even Trotskyites, but they were against Stalinism and against the Soviet Union. Some of the biggest names in the conservative movement in the 50s and 60s. Some of the biggest magazines with a conservative or even liberal ideological orientation in the 50s and 60s received money from the Congress for Cultural Freedoms. Many names you'd recognize were involved with this group. And throughout those 2 decades, nobody knew that the entire time this outfit, which was providing seed money for magazines, radio stations, TV stations, books, book clubs, you name it, it was receiving money from the CIA the entire time. Many of the constituent projects did not even know about the connection. The Congress would provide money for a small magazine, they'd provide a grant for an intellectual, and the recipients of these grants themselves, in some cases, did not even know that ultimately the money came from the CIA. That was revealed many years later. So this is important to understand about how intelligence in America operates. Again, World War II and the Cold War, they're relying upon Jewish refugees. They see Israel as a bulwark against communism. The CIA, even the elements that are not Jewish, or even necessarily sympathetic to Israel because it is Jewish, they were very pro-Jewish because of what they believed they could gain in their fight against the Soviet Union with the organized Jewish community in the world and with the state of Israel. And then, and aside from that, the CIA is fighting an ideological battle against totalitarianism, against Stalinism. And so they're backing a lot of conservative intellectuals, liberal and conservative, that are saying, you know, even if they're not conservative, they're against radicalism. They're against the turn of the American left to full-fledged socialism and communism. And that is so that they could fortify American democracy and democracy even in Europe. Now we got to get into William F. Buckley, understanding these things. So William F. Buckley is the head of National Review, criticizing Patrick Buchanan in 1991. But where does William F. Buckley come from? I'll read to you a little bit from his bio. William F. Buckley enrolled at Yale University after World War II. Very important that he was from Yale. He joined the Skull and Bones Secret Society. If you recall, so did George H.W. Bush about a year before he did, and so did other prominent people too. He edited the Yale Daily News, a student newspaper. In 1951, he was recruited into the CIA and worked with E. Howard Hunt in Mexico City, where his father had an oil company. While with the CIA, he published a book called God and Man at Yale, The Superstitions of Academic Freedom. Later, he left the CIA and became editor of the American Mercury. He continued to be active in right-wing politics. In 1953, he established the Intercollegiate Society of Individualists. So he's at Yale University after the war. He's recruited by one of his professors into the CIA. He allegedly leaves the CIA, and then he forms up this group called ISI, Intercollegiate Society of Individuals, which was created to counter a group of the same acronym of a similar name that was formed up by communists to support socialism. Then, in 1955, he hits his big break. He founds National Review with Leo Bazell. The early senior cadres of the journal included Yale professor Wilmore Kendall, who, as the chief CIA recruiter at Yale, was responsible for recruiting William F. Buckley into the CIA. It also included James Burnham, who was working for the OSS during World War II and was active in the Congress for Cultural Freedom. He was also reputed to have had a hand in the successful plan to overthrow Iran's Mossadegh and install the Shah in 1953. Also on the original board was William Rusher, formerly a hard-right captain in Army military intelligence. Marvin Lieberman met William F. Buckley in the 1950s and also helped to found the National Review. He was active in CIA projects internationally, including the Committee for a Free Asia, the World Anti-Communist League, and the American Chilean Council. Another OSS officer, William Casey, drew up the legal documents for the National Review. So William F. Buckley is at Yale. He gets recruited to the CIA by his professor, Wilmore Kendall. Then, after allegedly leaving the CIA, he forms up a Society for Free Market Individualists, a campus group, then starts up the National Review with no fewer than 5 former OSS or former CIA officers, including his professor that recruited him into the CIA, who was the head recruiter of the CIA at Yale, including James Burnham, who was at the founding of the Congress for Cultural Freedom. So it is obvious from the very beginning that William F. Buckley has a very similar story to Tucker Carlson. He's at an Ivy League university in New England, like Tucker Carlson. He's recruited by a professor to form up a student newspaper, write a conservative book against the communists, and to start up National Review, a publication that he had the help in founding with 5 other CIA officers, including ones that were involved in the Congress for Cultural Freedom, which was providing grants and money on behalf of the CIA to anti-communist projects. This is William F. Buckley. But he wasn't the only one to attack Patrick Buchanan. What is the basis of attacking Patrick Buchanan in the 1990s? Tucker Carlson then, just like now, and even William F. Buckley too, they said the problem with Pat Buchanan is that there is a legitimate fight against certain neocons. William F. Buckley eventually endorsed Pat Buchanan. Tucker Carlson considers himself an adversary of the neocons. They said the problem with Pat Buchanan and people like me is not that we're working for the neocons, it's not that we're the enemy. The subtle critique by Buckley and Carlson, 2 creatures of the CIA, is that both of us are hurting the real battle against the neocons. And they take issue with the fact that me and Pat Buchanan did not treat this as an ideological phenomenon, but as a Jewish phenomenon, as an ethnic or religious phenomenon. It's important to establish now who the neocons even are. If that is the battle between the America Firsters and the neocons, if we can all agree on that, but there is a battle within America First about who's really fighting the neocons, and we look at who's on either side of that battle. It's William F. Buckley and Tucker Carlson against Pat Buchanan and Nick Fuentes. It's Buckley at Yale, recruited in the CIA, founded National Review with the CIA, Tucker Carlson with his dad running Voice of America, against Pat Buchanan, Nick Fuentes, the cranks, the crazies, the anti-Semites. Well, it might help elucidate who the real enemy of the neocons are to take a look at the neocons themselves. This is a blurb from Ron Unz talking about the neocons from the same article as before. It says, quote, "The term neoconservative had originally appeared in the early 1970s, applied by critics to a small group of social scientists and other intellectuals who had rejected the radicalism of the 1960s and gravitated towards more moderate positions. In 1965, Irving Kristol co-founded The Public Interest, a semi-academic quarterly journal focused on matters of social policy. Many of these individuals were Jews originally from New York City, often with deep personal roots in the non-Stalinist left, including Trotskyites. Also around that time, Commentary Magazine, edited by Norman Podhoretz and based in the same city, New York, moved in a similar direction, replacing its enthusiasm for the radical new left with sharp criticism, becoming the leading American publication associated with the early neoconservative movement. In those pre-internet days, professionally produced print publications with a national circulation were an extremely scarce intellectual resource, and as such, could serve as the focal point for a nascent ideological movement. Okay? This is an important point to understand. In the 2020s, how do people get their ideas and information? We get it from social media. 15, 20, 30 years ago, how did people get their information? Cable news, television. But in those days, in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the policymakers, the politicians, the intellectuals, they were influenced by intellectual magazines. Now, even if the magazines did not have a huge readership, even if they were not read by millions of people or even hundreds of thousands of people, even if they were read by a small audience, it matters who that audience was. And in those days, that audience was the opinion makers, the taste makers, the policy makers, the intelligentsia. So what Unz is talking about, and this is critical to understand the influence of the neocons, is that the Congress for Cultural Freedom with the CIA is funding all these small magazines. And you might not understand the significance of it, but these small magazines, these radio stations, these international television programs, like we talked about last week, as Dick Carlson himself said, this is the lifeblood. This is the bread and butter of political movements, domestically and internationally. This is the intellectual juice behind them. This influences them. So the article says, in the pre-internet days, it is these professional publications, which were scarce, the national circulation professional publications, that would be the focal point for an ideological movement. And that's how the neoconservatives got started. It says, but Commentary, one such magazine, again edited by Norman Podhoretz, was also the flagship publication of the American Jewish Committee. And Podhoretz himself deeply identified with Jewish issues. Those factors impacted his editorial line, which naturally included a major focus upon Israel and the Middle East along the plight of Soviet Jewry. Partly for such reasons, a hawkish foreign policy, including heavy emphasis on the Cold War, became important neocon concerns. So think about how this develops. We got to back up and talk about the history again. So in the 1950s, we are in a Cold War with the Soviet Union. And very quickly it becomes clear that Jews are going to be the intermediary between the Soviet Union and the United States. It is going to be Jews, Jewish spies, Jewish double agents. They act as the mediators. They're conducting arbitrage between the Soviets and the Americans. I'll give you a few examples. In 1949, the Soviet Union detonates an atomic bomb. How did the Soviet Union get the bomb when the Americans developed it in secrecy? How did the Soviets get it before the British, before the French? They got it through Jewish spies, like Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were Jewish communists in America that passed the secrets to Soviet spies. In 1956, Nikita Khrushchev, the general secretary who succeeded Joseph Stalin after his death in 1953, Khrushchev gave a famous speech in 1956, de-Stalinizing the Communist Party. For the first time ever, He destroyed the cult of personality around Stalin by criticizing the excesses of the purges and other policies like the 5-year plans that Stalin inflicted on Russia. It was so secretive, it was called the secret speech, and it was only delivered to the Communist Party. But the United States got their hands on it. How? Because of Jewish refugees that left the Soviet Union, gave it to Shin Bet, the Israeli intelligence agency, who gave it to the CIA. So how did the Soviets get the bomb? Jewish spies. How did the Americans get the secret speech? Jewish spies. If the United States is fighting a spy war, an intelligence war with the Soviet Union, Jews are going to be a very big part of that. And why is that? Because Jews live in Russia, Jews live in the United States. They live in Germany, they live in France, they live in the United Kingdom, they live in Italy. And they don't have allegiance to their home countries. They might have allegiance to Israel. They might have ideological affinity with communism. They might have ideological affinity with capitalism. But because they're not, strictly speaking, American or Russian by ethnicity, or Italian or French, because they are stateless, they become free agents. And they could pick sides depending on their ideology, depending on their ideals. So an American Jew could be an ideological communist in their heart and betray America. A Russian Jew could be born in Russia but betray the Soviet Union because they're American in their heart. They're capitalist in their heart. Because they flee to Israel and they want to support Israel. Okay? So during the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, you have Americans that are engaged in a Cold War with the Soviet Union. But American Jewry, Russian Jewry, and Israel are somewhere in the middle. Now, the Americans are fighting with the Russians in Cuba, in Korea, in Vietnam. We're in the middle of an arms race, a space race. And for those that don't know, the space race is really an arms race. Because when we're building rockets that are ostensibly supposed to do satellites and go to the moon, they also have a dual use, which is as intercontinental ballistic missiles. So in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, Americans are going crazy. The American leadership is going crazy because we're saying, how do we defeat this enemy? They seem to be everywhere. These countries are falling like dominoes. And the Soviets have a bigger conventional force in Europe. They have a bigger nuclear arsenal. They might have the advantage. This is what's happening in America. And so the Americans are funding these magazines to stall and to forestall communist influence in Europe and the United States. But there's something happening at the same time, which is that Israel is fighting a war for independence. Israel declares its independence in 1948. They fight a war with Egypt and Syria. Jewish organized crime in America runs guns illegally to Israel, which helps Israel decisively defeat a coalition of Egypt and Syria in the war. And an unsteady peace breaks out. In 1955, Israel does a major raid on Gaza and kills 35 Egyptians. Egypt is not receiving arms from the United States and Europe, but Israel is. So what does Egypt do? President Nasser turns to the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union begins supplying weapons to Israel's enemies, Egypt and Syria. In 1956, Israel goes to war with Egypt. Throughout the 50s and 60s, Israel's at war with its neighbors, with the Palestinians, with terrorist groups. Israel is fighting for its very survival. And as time goes on, Egypt and Syria and all the other Muslim countries are moving closer to the Soviet Union, and Israel is moving closer to the United States. By the mid-1960s, when Lyndon Johnson is installed in the United States, we start pouring weapons into Israel. Whereas up until 1963, we were not giving Israel a lot of weapons, and that was in the pursuit of balance between Israel and the Arabs. All of a sudden, we were giving them tons of guns. And we really made the decision that Israel was going to be our country. They were going to be our bulwark against communism in the Middle East. Something very important happens in 1967. In 1967, Israel sees an opportunity to strike a crushing blow on Egypt and Syria, its prime adversaries, its most powerful adversaries on its southern and northern border. in the Six-Day War, Israel flies into Egypt and destroys its air force. Then Israel flies into Syria and destroys its air force. With total air superiority, Israel invades Gaza, Israel invades the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, and then Israel in the north takes the Golan Heights and nearly sieges Damascus in the north inside of Syria. And in 6 days, the war is over. Israel is bigger than ever. It now occupies not just the entire Mandate of Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, but it also occupies the Sinai and the Golan Heights. Israel is massive. Now, in response to this sneak attack, the Soviet Union begins giving more support to Egypt and Syria. The left wing in America, the American political left, has a harsh reaction. They view the Israeli war as aggression, as provocative. They view it as an occupation of these third world countries. And so the American political left and the Soviet Union turn against Israel. In 1973, Egypt and Syria have their revenge. They launch a surprise attack on Israel. Egypt invades the Sinai Peninsula from the Suez Canal. Syria invades the Golan simultaneously. Israel is caught totally off guard. They're almost overrun and defeated. They come very close to the brink of annihilation. The United States initially is reluctant to bail them out. Israel threatens to use nuclear weapons. The Prime Minister of Israel at the time, Golda Meir, calls up Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger and says, if you don't give us support, if you don't bail us out, we will have to take extraordinary measures, implying nuclear weapons. And they begin taking their nuclear warheads and putting them in public view of satellite imagery to send the message to Nixon and Kissinger. Nixon and Kissinger bail out Israel with a massive airlift of weapons. And there's a very contentious period of negotiations between the Americans and the Soviets, the Israelis and the Egyptians, but eventually the war is settled. In 1975, the Soviet Union goes to the United Nations and they pass a resolution saying that Zionism is racism. The Soviet Union is now fully against Israel. And they're against Israel because they're backing Syria, they're backing Egypt, which Israel has just invaded, attacked, at war with, violating the terms of the ceasefire. The Soviet Union is backing Israel's enemies and passing resolutions in the UN objecting to Zionism itself. And the Soviet Union's allies in America, the American political left, is also decidedly against Israel. They say that Israel's colonizers, racists, they take the side of the Egyptians and the Syrians. And this is where many of the Jewish left-wingers that were supported by the Congress for Cultural Freedom in the 50s and 60s. Now remember, they themselves were communists. They were from New York. They were liberals. They were leftists. Remember, the purpose of the Congress for Cultural Freedom was to beat back the ideological influence of the Soviet Union by steering the left away from communism and Stalinism and towards a more moderate form of left-wing politics. And many of those intellectuals were part of a Jewish New York intellectual scene in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. All these guys were left-wingers. And the neocons like Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz, they were left-wing too. But when they saw the American political left's reaction to 67 and 73, when they saw the Soviet Union's resolution at the UN, when they saw the Soviet Union go firmly behind Egypt and Syria, that is when the Jewish neocons flipped. And this is what they had to say about it. These are the two preeminent neocons, Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz. Irving Kristol, in a Wall Street Journal essay titled Notes on Yom Kippur, said that he admitted to a Jewish instinct for impending disaster. He wrote, "I care desperately. I sense deep down that what happens to Israel will be decisive for Jewish history and for the kinds of lives my grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be leading. In such a war, not only is the whole of the Jewish past at stake, but also the whole of the Jewish future." That's Irving Kristol, the godfather of neoconservatism. That's Irving Kristol, the godfather of neoconservatism, who founded what was at the time the most influential said that he admitted to a Jewish instinct for impending disaster. He wrote, "I care desperately. I sense deep down that what happens to Israel will be decisive for Jewish history and for the kinds of lives my grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be leading. In such a war, not only is the whole of the Jewish past at stake, but also the whole of the Jewish future." That's Irving Kristol, the godfather of neoconservatism. That's Irving Kristol, the godfather of neoconservatism, who founded what was at the time the most influential neocon magazine in the 19th century. '60s, which is the public interest. He said in his notes on the Yom Kippur War that the whole of Jewish history is at stake. He sensed it. Norm Podhoretz, who founded Commentary Magazine, which is arguably the second or first most influential neocon magazine after Public Interest, Norman Podhoretz had this to say about the 1975 resolution by the Soviet Union. He said, quote, "The resolution did not merely condemn the state of Israel for alleged crimes against the Palestinians or for discriminating against its own Arab citizens. What the resolution did was to denounce the state of Israel itself as an illegitimate entity. The very idea of a sovereign Jewish state in the Middle East, let alone the actuality of one, no matter what its boundaries might be, was by definition declared criminal. In the eyes of this resolution, Israel could only cease to be criminal if it ceased to be both Jewish and sovereign. If, in other words, it ceased to exist." Returning to the boundaries of 1967 or even the boundaries of 1948 would make not the slightest difference, for the resolution did not concern boundaries or occupied territories. It concerned the right of a sovereign Jewish state of any size or shape to exist in the Middle East. In a profile of Podhoretz, it said, quote, he felt deeply betrayed by the American left, and not to mention the Europeans, who became critical of the Jewish state after the 1967 war, and even more so after the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Podhoretz later wrote that after the war, he would direct commentary to become more aggressive than it had ever been before in defending Jewish interests, both at home and abroad. So, you have these Jewish leftists in New York. They're being funded by the CIA. These Jewish intellectual leftists, they're being funded by the CIA to curb the radical tendencies, the Stalinist, Soviet sympathetic tendencies of the American left wing. And they're working hand in glove with the CIA, who's also against the Soviet Union. But as Israel progresses in its own story, Israel finds itself at odds, in peril, with its Soviet-backed neighbors. And in a series of wars, starting in 67, leading into 73, American Jewish leftists realize the Soviet Union is really the enemy. Because the Soviet Union and the American left, if they had it their way, they would make it so that Israel doesn't exist. The Soviets are backing Israel's enemies, and the American left is backing the Soviets' claim that Israel has no right to exist. And so the two preeminent neocons, they would become the preeminent leaders of the neoconservative movement, Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz, they are liberals, they are leftists. They say, we are no longer of the left. We feel betrayed. We are no longer supporting the European left. We feel betrayed by Europe, by the American left wing, to some extent by our fellow liberals, leftists, even communists. Because they have no sympathy for Israel as Israel is being destroyed. And this is why they turn to the right. This is from PBS. It says, quote, the neoconservatives were mostly former leftists who deserted George McGovern's Democratic Party in protest against its opposition to the war in Vietnam. While it was true that many neocons were Jewish, so too was the Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. The turning point for them came in 1973 with Israel's near defeat at the hands of the Arabs. It was Kissinger himself who observed in his memoirs that the Yom Kippur War, quote, completed the neocons' conversion to geopolitical realities. Henceforth, they agitated in favor of a U.S. foreign policy that melded fervent anti-communism with uncompromising support for Israel. Now, I want to get into their biographies. That is what made them neoconservatives. What did they do as neoconservatives? This is the New York Times on Irving Kristol. It says, quote, Mr. Kristol exerted an influence across generations from William F. Buckley to the columnist David Brooks. Through a variety of positions he held over a long career, including executive vice president of Basic Books, the contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. He was commonly known as the godfather of neoconservatism. In probably his most widely quoted comment, Mr. Kristol defined a neoconservative as a liberal who had been mugged by reality. Mr. Kristol translated his concerns into a magazine. In 1965, with a $10,000 contribution from a wealthy acquaintance, he founded the Public Interest magazine. Its founding is considered the beginning of neoconservatism. For more than 6 decades, beginning in 1942, when he and other recent graduates of City College founded Enquiry, a journal of independent radical thought, his life revolved around magazines. Besides the Public Interest, Mr. Kristol published, edited, and wrote for journals of opinion like Commentary, Encounter, The New Leader, The Reporter, and The National Interest. All were little magazines with limited circulation, but Mr. Kristol valued the quality of his readership more than the quantity. He said with a circulation of a few hundred, you could change the world. So he wrote for Commentary, founded the Public Interest, and also edited Encounter. Norman Podhoretz, his close friend, served as Commentary's editor-in-chief from 1960 until his retirement in 1995. He is still its editor-at-large. From 1981 to 1987, Podhoretz was an advisor to the U.S. Information Agency. From 1995 to 2003, he was a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. American-Israeli journalist Benjamin Ballant and former editor at Commentary described the magazine as the contentious magazine that transformed the Jewish left into the neoconservative right. Historian and literary critic Richard Pels said no other journal of the past half-century has been so consistently influential or so central to the major debates that have transformed the political and intellectual life of the United States. This is Irving Kristol and Norman Podhoretz. Now again, according to Ron Unz, according to Irving Kristol himself, according to the New York Times, it is these little magazines that they were founding which are changing the world. It's Irving Kristol at Encounter. It is Norman Podhoretz at Commentary. These are two magazines that they say are changing the world. What is the basis of their influence? What is the conversion? How are they changing the world? What is the basis of the neoconservative movement? Both Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz, the godfather and the patriarch of the neocon movement at these magazines, they are both Jews from New York City. They're both left-wing Jews. They're both deeply involved with the CIA. And both of them, after Israel was under attack, turned against the American left, against the radicals, turned against the Soviet Union, and gradually, from 1965 until 1975, transitioned from being Jewish leftists to neoconservatives. Now, Irving Kristol's comment is instructive. Irving Kristol's most famous adage is that the neocons, the essence of what it is to be a neocon, is that they were liberals who got mugged by reality. But let's deconstruct that. Who were the liberals that got mugged by reality? Irving Kristol and Norman Podhoretz. The liberals that got mugged by reality and became the neocons were Jewish leftists. They weren't liberals. They were Jewish leftists that got mugged by reality. In particular, they were Jewish leftists who were backed by the CIA that got mugged by reality. And how did they get mugged by reality? What is he referring to? How did the Jewish left turn into the neoconservative right? If the neocons are libs that got mugged by reality, what mugged them? What does that mean exactly? When Henry Kissinger said they were converted to geopolitical reality, what does he mean? Well, Irving Kristol and Norman Podhoretz say in their own words, they realized that the left had gone too radical when it turned against Israel. When the Soviet Union, under Leonid Brezhnev, started promulgating an anti-Israel doctrine, on the basis that Israel was a colonial capitalist power. When the Soviet Union backed Egypt and Syria to the hilt, so much so they almost defeated Israel. And when the non-Jewish American left turned against Israel and made those same arguments that Israel is racist, Israel's a settler colonial state, Israel is an outpost of capitalism and colonialism, that is how they got mugged by reality. The Jewish left got mugged by the non-Jewish Soviet Union and the non-Jewish American and European left that turned against Israel. Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz said, if Israel goes down, the whole Jewish future is in jeopardy. And who is pushing Israel to the brink of destruction? The left, the Soviet Union and the American left. And both Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz said, after Yom Kippur, they became increasingly pro-Jewish and they married their intense support for Israel to the anti-communism, anti-Soviet Union, Cold War hawk ideological position. Now, there's an interesting fact here. Irving Kristol founded or worked with Encounter magazine in the United Kingdom. Encounter magazine was funded by the Congress for Cultural Freedom. Irving Kristol was present at the founding of the Congress for Cultural Freedom in the 1950s. So that CIA effort to back left-wing anti-Stalinist intellectuals to curb left-wing radicalism, to curb the Soviet intellectual penetration of America. Irving Kristol was there at its founding in Berlin in the 1950s, and his magazine Encounter got money from the Congress for Cultural Freedom through the CIA. That's the godfather of neoconservatism at Public Interest, who, according to the New York Times obituary, created the neocon movement when he founded that magazine. And Norman Podhoretz, who founded Commentary, he's the patriarch of the neocon movement. Norman Podhoretz hired Irving Kristol as a writer at Commentary, and Commentary is a project of the American Jewish Committee, which is the representative, that is the head of all the American Jewish groups. It goes back to 1904 and is involved deeply with the early Zionist movement, the State of Israel, and American Jewry. Are you starting to see? So, the CIA from its very beginning is working with these Jewish refugees from Nazism, from the Soviets. The most ferocious Cold Warriors see the Jews and then later Israel as an asset against the Soviet Union. They start backing Jewish left-wing intellectuals, paying them to start up these magazines to curb their Stalinist, pro-Soviet tendencies. But as the Cold War goes on, Israel becomes entrenched as an American ally. Israel's enemies become entrenched as Soviet allies. And as Israel comes into its own, as it develops a nuclear weapon, as it becomes armed by the United States and becomes something like a regional power, it comes into confrontation with Syria and Egypt, who are pushed into the corner of the Soviet Union, which supplies them with more and more weapons. And that makes the Soviet Union more and more anti-Israel. And finally, in '73, when this leads to a catastrophe, which is the Soviet Union backing an Arab invasion of Israel that almost destroys Israel, the Jewish left, backed by the CIA, gets mugged by reality. And they say now it's personal. Before, we were moderate leftists, backed by the CIA, generally pro-Jewish, but somewhat ambivalent about Zionism. They said they had this awakening. If Israel goes down, we all go down. And if Israel goes down, it'll be because of the communists, the American left, and their allies, the Arabs. And we have to redouble our efforts to defeat all of them. The American left, the Muslims, the Arabs, and the communists. And it is Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz, the leaders of neoconservatism, through their influential magazines paid by the CIA, that influenced the Jewish intelligentsia to abandon nothing about their liberal ideology other than their pacifism. The only conversion to speak of, they're still liberal. They're still center-left liberals, pro-immigration, pro-free markets, all this kind of stuff. The only thing they changed their mind on is we gotta destroy the Soviet Union because it's gonna destroy Israel first if we don't. Now, returning back to the original point here, William F. Buckley and Tucker Carlson say, you can attack the neocons all day, but if you, like Pat Buchanan, say that there's an amen corner in the US that's all Jewish, the Jews want the Gentiles to die in their wars, if you say it has anything to do with Judaism, you're a real anti-Semite and that's a problem. But the essence of neoconservatism is its Jewishness. And when you read the godfathers of neoconservatism, they're not ambiguous about it at all. Irving Kristol said, notes on the Yom Kippur War. I sense deep down whatever happens to Israel is decisive for Jewish history and for the lives of my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The whole of the Jewish past and future is at stake. That's the godfather of neoconservatism on why he founded neoconservatism. And the why is that if Israel's destroyed, then my Jewish grandchildren will not live healthy, prosperous lives. And you're telling me neoconservatism has nothing to do with Jewishness? Norm Podhoretz, his magazine was created by the American Jewish Committee. And he said the same thing. After Yom Kippur, he said he would become more aggressive than ever in defending Jewish interests at home and abroad. These are indisputably the godfathers of neoconservatism. They each founded the most important publications that created the neocon movement, Public Interest and Commentary. And they say they went from Jewish left to neocon right because Israel was almost destroyed by the Soviet Union. That's what makes them neocons, and that's why they want America to fight the Soviet Union and the Soviets' client states in the Middle East. Egypt, Syria, and then later Iraq, Iran. Hello? And you're telling me that if we say that the Amen Corner, Rosenthal, Krauthammer, Kissinger, if we point out that they're all Jews, we're anti-Semitic? That's what it is. Now let's take it even a step further. You have not seen anything yet. You have seen nothing yet because I am about to blow your fucking mind, okay? So Irving Kristol was there at the foundation of the Congress for Cultural Freedom in the 1950s. That's the CIA's program to fund these intellectual movements. Later, he's the godfather of neoconservatism. He creates a magazine called Encounter, which gets money from the CIA. He claims he'll defend Jewish interests at home and abroad after Yom Kippur for the sake of his Jewish children and grandchildren. His buddy, James Burnham, was at the founding board of National Review when Bill Buckley, who was also CIA, founded that magazine. Irving Kristol also undertook another project. Do you remember I talked about the Intercollegiate Studies Institute or the Intercollegiate Society of Individualists that William Buckley founded in 1953? Well, Irving Kristol did something very similar in 1979. Okay? How was William F. Buckley recruited? He was recruited at Yale by his professor, who was a CIA recruiter at Yale. That was his job. And when William F. Buckley graduated and created National Review, he hired his CIA recruiter professor on the board of National Review, as well as a Congress for Cultural Freedom founding member at his conservative magazine in the 50s. This is how the CIA operates. If you're the CIA, how do you find precocious intelligence assets? How do you find people that have a skill for intelligence? You go to the elite schools. Where do you find the smartest people? Where do you find the smartest, most high status, most elite people in American society? The Ivy League schools. You go to Yale, you go to Dartmouth, you go to Columbia, and you go to these 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds who are conservative leaning, and you get their professors who teach them in their classes to pay attention and read their papers. Oh, William F. Buckley seems conservative. He would be a good fit for the CIA. He will help us win this intellectual Cold War. So the CIA gets faculty at the universities, at the Ivy Leagues, who teach the best and brightest, to monitor them, to groom them from a very early age, to watch their careers with great interest. This one's smart, this one's precocious, this one's conservative. He'd make a good CIA officer, and they groom them over time. They encourage those ideological tendencies. They encourage them to write. Bill Buckley wrote at the Yale Daily. Bill Buckley founded the National Review and a campus group with his CIA recruiter professor. This is how this stuff works. Now, Irving Kristol, his contemporary, who again is the godfather of neoconservatism, there at the founding of the Congress for Cultural Freedom with James Burnham, who was at the founding of National Review, Bill Buckley's paper. Irving Kristol, who founded Encounter, funded by the CIA. Irving Kristol. Irving Kristol, who said, I'm a neocon now because of the Yom Kippur War and my Jewish great-grandchildren. In 1979, Irving Kristol founds an organization called the Institute for Educational Affairs. This is the story about that group from Wikipedia. They responded to a request by 2 University of Chicago students for startup funding for a conservative newspaper called Counterpoint. Do you know who founded that magazine? John Podhoretz, Norm Podhoretz's father. So Irving Kristol and Norm Podhoretz found the neocon movement in the 1960s. In 1979, Irving Kristol starts up an educational group called the IEA, Institute for Educational Affairs. And Irving Kristol provides the startup money for Norm Podhoritz's kid, John, to found Counterpoint at the University of Chicago in 79. It gets better. By 1980, this grant program expands and is called the Collegiate Network. In 1990, the Madison Center for Educational Affairs merges with the IEA. They fund 57 conservative student publications. It takes them 10 years. Would you like to know which student newspapers this group founded? This group of Jewish neocons, led by Irving Kristol. Would you like to know which student newspapers they helped found with their seed money, with their funding? Well, the first was Counterpoint by Norm Podhoritz's kid, John, at University of Chicago in 1979. Then, the Princeton Tory at Princeton University, founded by Yoram Hazony in 1984. Yoram Hazony. Then, in 1987, the Stanford Review, founded by Peter Thiel. And the coup de grace, the Dartmouth Review, founded by Dinesh D'Souza. These are four of the publications that Irving Kristol's Institute for Educational Affairs provided the seed money for. Counterpoint by John Podhoretz at U Chicago. Princeton Tory by Yoram Hazony at Princeton in 84. Stanford Review by Peter Thiel in 1987, and Dartmouth Review by Dinesh D'Souza at Dartmouth University. Irving Kristol provided the money for all those student newspapers. And as we've established, Irving Kristol is a CIA asset. He is there at the creation for the Congress for Cultural Freedom. He's the godfather of neoconservatism. He founded Policy Review, or the Policy Journal. He's at Commentary with Norm Podhoretz. He founds Encounter with money from the CIA. But it gets even better, because in 1995, this network, the Collegiate Network, the Institute for Educational Affairs, the Madison Center, they're overtaken by ISI, the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, that group that William F. Buckley founded in 1953 to bring it all the way home. Okay? So William F. Buckley is at Yale, like George Bush before him, like James Angleton before him. Bill Buckley's recruited by his professor into the CIA. They found ISI, Institute, what is it? The Intercollegiate Studies Institute. William F. Buckley founds National Review with Bill Burnham, who was there at the creation of the Congress for Cultural Freedom, an intellectual group paid by the CIA to fund campus groups, newspapers, radio stations. He's there with James Burnham, who is also there with Irving Kristol at its founding in Berlin in 1951. Later in the 1950s, he founds National Review with James Burnham and his professor and 3 other CIA agents. Irving Kristol starts up the CIA-funded magazines. They're Jewish left-wing publications that turn into Jewish neocon publications. They're funded by the American Jewish Committee and the CIA. And then Irving Kristol provides the seed money for Peter Thiel, Yoram Hazony, Dinesh D'Souza, and John Podhoretz student newspapers. After all that, in 95, it folds into ISI, which Bill Buckley founded in 1953. That's where it all starts. Now, what's interesting about Irving Kristol is that in the 60s, it was discovered that this was going on. Left-wing publications found out that the Congress for Cultural Freedom was backed by the CIA. So Irving Kristol quits and joins the American Enterprise Institute. Now, as I said before, this is a story about generations. Generations over time. You could say that was generation number one. Let's talk about generation number two. So if William F. Buckley got to start at Yale in the 1950s, let's now talk about Peter Thiel, Yoram Hazony. Let's talk about Dinesh D'Souza. Let's talk about John Podhoretz. Let's talk about generation number two, which is, of course, funded and spawned from generation number one. In 1995, Irving Kristol's son, Bill Kristol, founds the Weekly Standard. And it becomes the new preeminent neoconservative publication that Tucker Carlson writes for. Irving Kristol's kid, Bill Kristol, starts Weekly Standard. It's founded with the help of the News Corporation, that's Rupert Murdoch's company. And Tucker Carlson in 95 begs Bill Kristol to hire him at the magazine to write for them, where they push the Iraq War, the second Iraq War, in 2003, and become the most influential publication in favor of the war in Iraq. Let's talk a little bit about Yoram Hazony. Yoram Hazony gets money from Irving Kristol in 1984. Yoram Hazony is an Israeli Jew. He's from Israel. He studies in America, and then he goes back home to Israel. He founds the Herzl Institute, the Shalem Center. These are Jewish nationalist think tanks. This is Yoram Hazony. Yoram Hazony wrote an article in the 1990s about a figure named Kahana. Kahana was a Jewish extremist in Israel. I'll read to you some of his views. This is from his Wikipedia. It says, during his lifetime, Meir Kahana publicized his Kahanism ideology throughout the United States. In Israel, he proposed enforcing Jewish law as codified by Maimonides. While serving in the Knesset in the mid-1980s, Kahana proposed numerous laws, none of which passed, to emphasize Judaism in public schools, reduce Israel's bureaucracy, forbid sexual relations between Jews and non-Jews, separate Jewish and Arab neighborhoods, end cultural meetings between Jewish and Arab students. He went so far as to demand that non-Jews in Israel either become slaves or face deportation. This is a Jewish figure in Israel named Meir Kahana. Yoram Hazony had this to say about that figure in 1994. He wrote this. He wrote, "Here was a man who said what he meant and meant what he said. It was the first time we had ever seen that in a political leader. We were 17 years old, American Jews, children of Orthodox rabbis, educated at Zionist schools and yeshivas, students of the best Jewish institutions in the United States. Yet I don't believe any of us had ever heard the things we heard that day. If someone comes to kill you, kill him first. There is no such thing as innocent civilians in a war. Jewish lives come before those of non-Jews. A Jew should never be ashamed of being a Jew." This is Yoram Hazony on Meir Kahana. Jewish lives come before those of non-Jews. A Jew should never be ashamed of being a Jew. This is Yoram Hazony on Meir Kahana. Kahana's message wasn't sophisticated, but it was clear, it was passionate. It affected us in a way nothing else ever had. He said that we had nothing to be ashamed of, that Jewish pride and strength were good things, that we could be proud of who we were, that we had a past worth knowing and a future worth building. We never adopted his political views, but he was the only Jewish leader who seemed to understand how much we wanted to be proud Jews. Kahana didn't tell us to be proud of someone else's interpretation of Judaism. He said Judaism was for us. We didn't need to hide it, to apologize for it, to downplay it in public. We didn't need to water it down. The Torah was ours. Our traditions were good. If we learned them and loved them, we would be strong. For the first time, we realized our schools had never taught us what it meant to be proud Jews. We'd been taught to fit in, to get along, to apologize for what we were, and we had done it well. Kahana's books made us want to be better Jews, stronger Jews, Jews who could live by the Torah without fear, Jews who would one day be fathers who would teach strength and dignity to their children, not hatred, but pride. Now, for those that don't know who this figure is, Yoram Hazony, I'll give you some name drops. You might understand who he is after this. So Yoram Hazony, as I said, in 1984, got funding from Irving Kristol to start the Princeton Tory. 10 years later, he writes this article about Meir Kahana, who said that non-Jews should be enslaved by Jews or killed by Jews. And Hazony says, this guy's the real deal, this guy's awesome. Yoram Hazony is the mentor of Bari Weiss. After Bari Weiss graduated from Columbia University in 2005, she went to Israel to study at Yoram Hazony's Shalem Center. Yoram Hazony is the founder of the National Conservatism Conference, which was started up in 2022 with money from Peter Thiel. And it hosted J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Peter Thiel himself, and later Tucker Carlson. That Yoram Hazony. So when you see the National Conservatism Conference, which has been going on for the past 3 or 4 years, which aimed to be the nationalist alternative to CPAC, where Vance, Josh Hawley, Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio, Peter Thiel, and Tucker have sought to promulgate a new doctrine of nationalist conservatism. This is the founder of that group. This is the mentor of Bari Weiss. He is a Jewish extremist who says that this radical rabbi that wants all Jews to die or be slaves to the Jews is a really great guy and made us proud to be Jewish and all the rest. And he got money from Irving Kristol, probably as a grooming mechanism in '84 at the Princeton Tory. But it gets better. In 1987, the other student newspaper that got funding from Irving Kristol was Stanford Review by Peter Thiel. Now, we all know a lot about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, 10 years later, goes on to start PayPal. How did he start PayPal? Well, he worked with the Israeli Jewish professor at Stanford University, who is the head of the cryptography department. Because the big question for how to create a peer-to-peer payment system in the age of the internet was solving the privacy question, solving cryptography. So PayPal was created by Peter Thiel and Max Levchin, another Jew, overseen by the Israeli Jewish head at Stanford University of cryptography. And thus PayPal was born. Peter Thiel banks his millions of dollars from PayPal, and just a year later, after they sell it, he founds Palantir with Alex Karp, who is Jewish, and Joe Lonsdale, who is Jewish. And Palantir's exclusive contract